1.6 naturally aspirated Toyota engine, which differs from the old Rover K series unit because it actually works. Power's up too. It's now got 134 brake horsepower and 118 foot-pounds of torque, which helps propel the Little Elise from 0 to 60 in around 6 seconds and onto a top speed of 127 miles an hour. Now that might not sound like a lot for a sports car, but I promise you, it's just the right amount. Modern sports car makers seem to be caught up in a horsepower war, with certain cars producing 5, 6, maybe even 700 brake horsepower. And I'm sorry, but that's just too much. It's stupid. You can't actually use most of that power on the road. Whereas with this, I can pretty much keep my foot welded to the floor from the moment I start it up to the moment I stop. Experience really is in a class of just one. Only Lotus can make a car handle and feel as good as this does. The unassisted steering, while heavy when manoeuvring, comes alive on tight, twisty country roads like this. I cannot put into words how much this steering wheel communicates exactly what the front wheels are doing at any given moment. In fact, the whole car is moving around constantly, bumping up and down, flexing, telling me to turn hard around this corner or put more throttle on in this corner. It's just brilliant! The weight is a significant factor in this. The Lotus Elise is already a very light car, but somehow Lotus have managed to scrape an extra 24 kilograms out of the car. That takes the total weight to just 852 kilograms. To do this, they've installed a new, lighter lithium-ion battery. They've removed all of the noise cancellation, as you might be able to hear. But mainly, they've installed these new sport seats, which have almost no padding on them whatsoever.
And all that's lovely, but what's it like to live with on a daily basis? Well, those seats I've just mentioned, are they comfortable? No, not really. You can't really recline them, they're fixed. You can't move them up or down. All you can do is pull a little lever down here and slide them back and forwards. But I'm 6'2", as you can probably tell, and I could do with it being able to go back just a little bit further. My knees are just a bit too close to the steering wheel for my liking. And while we're on the inside, let's talk about the cabin. It is very basic in here. You've got a sort of glove box which is just about big enough for a bottle of water, and that's a good thing actually, because that's sort of the closest thing you get to one in here. I suppose there is this thing here which, as you can see, doesn't no. In the center console you've got your heater controls, which are fairly standard: hot and cold, fan speed, direction, all fairly normal. But then above you've got the radio, which on this car is an option. As standard, it doesn't come with a radio at all. Instead you get this little plastic piece with the Club Racer sticker on it that sort of would fit where the radio was. So there isn't just a massive hole in the dashboard. Then further down in the cabin you've got, next to the gear stick, the only real buttons in this interior. You've got your traction control on and off. You've got your sport, which as far as I can work out is a sort of halfway house between having the traction fully on and fully off. And you've got your hazard switch. Oh, and there's this little black thing, switch doofer there, which I have absolutely no idea what that does, and I'm too scared to touch it to find out. Obviously the first problem when you're presented with an Elise is the process of getting in and out of it. The main problems are this sill, which is very wide and very high, and then couple that with this very low roof line, it doesn't leave a lot of actual space for manoeuvring your body in and out of it, as I shall now demonstrate gracefully. Oh god. You sort of get your leg over there, grab the steering wheel, push down, and just sort of, there we go. Lovely. And while I'm mentioning the roof line, I suppose I better show you how to take the roof off. So, first of all, open up these doors, and there's two little latches. You sort of, oh god, come on, push inwards. Oh, this one's being a right little, there we go. So you get that off, and then you sort of roll it, a bit like you're making jam roly-poly, over towards the other side, and then, bear with,
Go around, open it up.
do the same on this side with the latches. Oh, there we go. And then you've sort of left with this thing, whatever it is, and then you need to put it in the boot, but to open the boot you need to pull the latch there, and then open that up and just sort of place it delicately in there. And then you're sort of left with these things, which are, I don't really know what they are. Obviously they're there to support the roof, but I just don't know really. And then they would go in there as well, or down there. And then you're open to the elements. You've got a convertible, but it's currently about, oh I don't know, 1 degree, 2 degrees, and it's horribly windy and freezing cold, and I'm just trying to think of something I'd rather do than drive around with the roof off, and it's eat 1,000 wasps right now. So what I'm going to do is put that back on as quickly as possible to avoid hypothermia. Right, these begin. Do that, and then, oh gosh, no, yes. The only slight issue is with having the roof in the boot compartment is the roof is quite large even when it's rolled up, so you can either take luggage with you or you can have the roof down. You can't have both, which might be an issue for some people. That hasn't worked. Luckily I haven't got any friends, so I never need to take anything anywhere. That still hasn't worked. What the bloody hell am I supposed to do? Do I need to put this side in first? You see, this is why. So that goes in there. Right, that's clicked in on that side. Do you click in on this side? Try again. There you go. As easy as that. That took what? 5 to 10 minutes? It really is as easy as having an SLK and just pressing a button. Good car. Right. Now that my hands are sufficiently frozen.
Also, while the might want to stop off and go and get your ears checked, because the noise in here is extraordinary. There's lots of wind noise from around the windscreen. The tyre roar, it doesn't matter what surface you're on, it's always extremely loud. And that sports exhaust drones like I don't know what, especially at motorway speeds. It really can get quite unbearable in here. There are several good reasons why you shouldn't buy this car then, but there's one very big reason why you should, because it is fantastic. I'm crawling on my hands and knees, and I don't care that my back's broken and my pelvis has been turned to dust, and I don't care that it's louder than a commercial airliner. All I want to do is this.